Right, what is going on Twitter right now? Okay, so I've been doing some research for the Nick and Joe podcast for this week, and it's very difficult to know exactly what people want or what's going on. So I'm talking about the sexual harassment outings that have been going on all over Twitter. Now, before I get into this, I want to make it absolutely clear. I would never not believe somebody who said that they'd been a victim of harassment or sexual assault. I want to make that completely clear. I also want to make clear that I do encourage victims to come forward, and I do think we have a responsibility to work together to make sure that this stops happening. However, I believe there are a lot of people on Twitter who are doing more harm than good, and today I'm going to show you a few examples. So first up is somebody called the Cafe Ella. I'm now blocked with them, so I'll not be able to tag them in this or let them know that they're going in this video, but whatever. The first tweet says, if you're a man and you know that a man is harassing other women, call him out. You don't need to tie case, drop names, but to pave the road, making it easier for women to come forward once they're ready, which can take years, you want to do the right thing. Project us. Now, I actually completely agree with that point. I think if you do have friends that you know are doing wrong, you should absolutely call them out. But my reply was after I saw one of the comments. So there was somebody who said, call out any harassment, no matter of gender or sexuality. Harassment is not okay. It doesn't matter who you are. Which, again, wholeheartedly agree with. Because it happens to men too. We know it happens to women. It probably happens to women more from what we know. But how many men are not speaking out also? And we do have evidence to show it also happens to men. To this she replied, yeah, of course, but men have a special responsibility when it comes to calling out and condemning sexual harassment. Too often, bros stay silent or cover each other. If your demographic is problematic in certain contexts, you need to break this context up from within. Now, this is where I started to have a problem, because she's basically saying that the burden here is with men, and then it's mostly men that know and are not calling out. Now, and are not calling out. Now, I would argue straight away that in most cases, probably somebody from their social group probably does know. Could it be another girlfriend? Could it be other men? Could it be friends? Because I think it's probably less likely that a guy is bragging about sexually harassing or straight up abusing women, depending on what you regard as harassment and sexual abuse and what that person probably thinks is okay. But to suggest that it's just men and their friends staying silent, I thought was wrong. So you can't quite see my reply, but I literally said I don't know a single man that wouldn't call out a friend who was sexually harassing another person. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it was because she said that it's specifically men. This was replied with, so you're one of the All Lives Matter idiots. Got it. Do you also want a straight pride parade? Do you also need a White History Month? Literally dumb. Wow, when did I say all lives matter? Do I want a straight pride parade? To which I replied, no, I have great time at the normal prides. I don't have a problem with that. Do you also need a White History Month? So I replied, or maybe stereotyping or generalization isn't cool. To which she replied, here we go again, the fragility of men has no limits. It's still no answer to what I said. She's completely averting from what she said. And I put, you'll change nothing if you can't rationally debate strategies to help these victims. And this conversation went on. At the time, I didn't quite get all the screenshots of everything, but there were a few people that came to her aid, all of which ended up blocking me, and they were all on a tirade saying that basically I was some kind of sympathizer for the attackers, and that is not what I said at all. I want justice for these people, but there are ways of getting that justice. And calling people out without evidence is not going to help us. I have to point out that a lot of the tweets that came along after this, and these tweets themselves, were particularly rude and didn't listen to anything I said. Literally started saying the opposite of things I was saying. How do you expect to change the culture of people when you don't listen to what they say, whether it's right or wrong? If you don't even listen to what they say in the first place, you're never going to get that respect for somebody to listen to you. There was also this tweet by Your Starling calling out the CEO of Twitch. I believe his name's Emmett Shear. And she goes on to say how he basically skimmed over the fact that there was problems with harassment on Twitch in a meeting within the company, and she's saying that she's calling him out, and trying to shame him, basically. But the tweet then goes on to say, to all those asking for the recording of the meeting, I don't have it. I'm not Twitch staff. I wouldn't even know how to begin obtaining it. So you're doing this on word of mouth. She says that she knows somebody who was in the meeting and she's calling them out. Now I'm not saying that this couldn't have happened. That's not what I'm saying at all. Do I think there's a problem with harassment? Yes. Do I think it needs to be addressed? Yes. Are we going to get this changed by attacking the CEO with claims that have no evidence or substance? I don't think that's going to help. Then we had this tweet as well. This is the kind of thing that these statements with no substance start to evolve into. I wonder how some of the partnership moderation teams at Twitch act also. They have great power in getting people partnerships. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me to hear of any of them asking for nudes to get someone partnered. What? So now we've got somebody accusing, again, on the back of something that has no basis, no substance, no evidence, saying they think that people are asking for nudes upon Twitch applications to get people partnered. Next up, we have a tweet by somebody called Princess Polygon, and she says, the swarm of rancid rats that have festered out of their little piss holes to defend various predators is why people are afraid of speaking out. So I replied to this, speaking objectively, shouldn't people be brought to justice before people get their pitchforks? All those people who are speaking out are incredibly brave, and as this is important, this part, what I say, I'd always take anyone seriously. But it seems if you stay indifferent until there's proof, you're a bad guy. And then I put, I understand not everybody wants to go through the ordeal of legal battles. However, it's a really awful situation, but we're swapping innocent until proven guilty to no smoke without fire. There was a couple of replies to this, so this conversation is a bit just disjointed, but I'll try and get it as accurately as I possibly can. She put, this is why people don't come forward, because everyone likes to instill doubt in believing victims. Right. I've literally just said in the tweet before, I'm not saying don't believe them. I literally just said that. This is what people are doing. They're averting from what you say. They're saying the opposite of what you say. I'd rather be on the wrong side of a victim who ended up being a liar than a predator who ended up being guilty. I think that's some sort of maybe reasonable statement, but then if you were put in the position where you had a false allegation against you and you were imprisoned for it and you got found guilty and you were put in prison for it, I don't think that you'd be thinking it was a particularly fair system. I think that'd be safe to say that most people would feel like that. I put, whoa, never said anyone lies. I didn't. I'm saying that you can't call them a liar and you can't say that somebody necessarily did something. That's the difference. I'm not saying that they're a liar. What I'm saying is you can't go out and potentially accuse somebody without evidence. That's the difficult part, whether we believe the victim or not. She put, people only bring this up as a tactic to introduce plausible deniability and therefore create doubt. The vast majority of cases are true. I agree with that. Probably the vast majority of cases are true. I think the statistics probably speak for themselves in that. But I only ever see people, mostly men in brackets, talk about false allegations. Well, mostly men, maybe. But then you say mostly, so it's not just men. So it's everybody. So we're talking about people making false allegations. Talking about false allegations. So this chat went on a little bit. I'm not sure what the tweet before said, but I said, yeah, I agree with that. I want a better system. Not everyone who's been sentenced to death was guilty, but most were. But is it fair on those few people that it happened to? It's not as simple as that. These other people shouldn't be martyrs, is what I'm saying. And she put, Joe, we're not a fucking courtroom or legal system. So I'm like, okay, so what do we do then? What's your answer then if we're not going to court? So I put, so you propose we go by the word of anyone who says it happens. What? We lynch the guy. What happens? She put, what we do is believe the victims and try to help them versus spending time debating whether somebody's trauma is valid. Do you even know the numbers of how many cases are true versus false? You want to act like this is some major epidemic when it's not. Again, it's trying to skirt around what the purpose of the conversation was in the first place. I'm not debating whether somebody's trauma is valid at all. I'm not debating that one minute for 1 second, and I've never said anything like that. So I put, I'm not debating whether the trauma is valid. I'm with you and I said we should support them, absolutely. I've not said otherwise, and I haven't. What I'm saying is it can't mean automatic condemnation. As for the legal system, I don't believe in it, but what alternative do we have? Because I think if you're going to say this doesn't work, you're going to have to come up with something better. And then I get a reply. So you're saying don't believe the victims even when they're literally posting screenshots? What? How many times do I have to say it? How many times do I have to say I'm not saying don't believe the victims? And I just said I believe them, and that's proof. Like I said earlier, that's completely different. I would rather be wrong about someone lying who said they were assaulted than be wrong about someone lying who said they didn't assault somebody. Now, we're going to see this again as well. We're going to see this several times. This is what people are saying. So I put to that, I'd rather not make assumptions and support the victim. If they have sufficient evidence, then we fight for justice. Then she puts, you dead set on trying to be centrist because you kind of have to be, right? I mean, I'm not being centrist with the victim. I'm saying we support the victim. That's not being centrist. Centrist would be not supporting until they got all the facts. I'm saying we support the victim straight away. If your closest female relative came up and told you some dude raped her, or she's bleeped out the rape, I'm not sure why. You're gonna remain neutral until you hear both sides. Lamau, okay. I replied to that with this. I'd have to be. That would probably be the hardest restraint in my life, because it would be, because that would obviously play on your emotions big time if it was somebody close to you. But as I said, I'd already said we're going to support the victim, and that would be my first thought. As angry as it would make me if it was somebody I absolutely trusted, I know that I can't just go around calling people out. I know that. If I assault the guy, I end up in prison, then what support could I be? She puts, lol, okay, Joe. You would not believe the accused is innocent if it was against someone who was personally affected by you. Save the centrist BS. Saying the same thing again. Then she put, you literally putting more energy into how we respond to predators than how we take care of victims, and that speaks volumes to me about your priorities. Well, the thing is, I said from the start, we need to support them. But I think that's obvious. The reason that I'm talking about this is because I believe these tweets are actually doing more harm than good. I didn't say I would believe they were innocent talking about the predators, but you're giving no answers on an alternative to the justice system. Then they were put in, like, I didn't say the justice system couldn't exist. What the fuck? Now you're putting words into my mouth. Jesus Christ. I said we are not the justice system. It can still operate while we as a society create social consequences for the predators. So social consequences is like a form of vigilantism, but I wanted to know what she meant by that. So I put, so you're okay with the justice system then, or not? That's meant to say. Because if you go down that route, you can go speaking out about it on social media or any platform. And then she put, I can multitask. I can point out the issues with the system while I recognize it is still necessary system currently, but it could be replaced with something. Sorry I didn't answer every. I think that's meant to say, sorry I don't plan every answer to suit your needs. I mean, the question's pretty simple though. Or like, if you want a better system, that's fine. But the problem is if you are going through the system, you can't be making those calls on social media because it could affect a trial later on, and that's part of the law. That's why you shouldn't speak out publicly if you're planning on taking these things to court. So I put, you don't have any answers short of calling out everyone without any sort of mediation, which is incredibly dangerous and would compromise a legal trial anyway. There we go. Just because you didn't like my answers doesn't mean I don't have any. We still don't have answers. So I put, so what are you actually saying? What's the message? Hold predators accountable. Believe victims. Confront people when they do predatory things. Confront them when they could creepily objectify other people. Stop letting this behavior pass with, oh, well, that's just who they are, or that's just how it is. Now, I'm not disagreeing with not calling people out that you've seen, that you have evidence for, or that you have proof for. But I'm not, this is in the context of people, a lot of them that don't know, who are retweeting stories about people they don't know with no sort of evidence. So I put, and what if there is no proof and they just deny it? And she put, lol, say thing. What is them denying it supposed to make me go, oh, well, the accuser is clearly lying. Now I need to trust the accused instead, like I stopped trusting the victim all of a sudden. That's not what I said. I'm not saying you can't trust the victim. I'm just saying you cannot say 100% that the accuser did it, no matter how much you trust that person, if you don't have proof. And she says again, I mean, like I said, I'm not a court system or a judge. If you want to believe someone without them providing concrete evidence, I fucking will. Like, what the fuck? It's fine if you want to believe somebody without concrete evidence. That's fine. You can believe them, and I think that most of them should be believed. But then there's a difference between believing them and then going after the accused without any evidence. And so I put, that's up to you, but it changes nothing. And she put, your point is, and I put, literally, what are those quotes you're pulling? Because she's putting a lot of stuff in quotation marks like it's something I agree with or say, when it's not. Like, absolutely nothing I've said at all. They're not quotes of you. I didn't say they were quotes from you. They were hypothetical. Stop trying to be misleading, please, and thanks. But I'm not trying to be misleading at all. I'm just trying to establish what it is exactly that we're supposed to be doing here. So I put, these tweets do more harm than good. To fight it is a long game, and we need to act smart, because when one of the stories comes out that a woman did lie, and we'll go into that a little bit later, these predators and chauvinists thrive on it, despite it being such a small percentage of the accusers. So again, I'm completely with the women who are speaking out. I'm not saying they're liars, but when somebody does, and they've already, that people have already been accusing people, and they come out as liars, then it looks really bad, and it doesn't do the situation any good. It doesn't. The person who's obviously lied in the first place is really hurting the campaign, and also all the people who've been calling that person out without any evidence, they're hurting the campaign also. She wanted to sign off there because, I don't know, like, I guess she'd either just had enough, or, you know, there were no answers, like, had completely taken what I said the wrong way. Maybe they realized that at this point. Can't speak for them, of course. So on to a guy called Oreo Side. So this guy has been sharing anonymous stories of assault abuse for those people who are not wanting to come forward, which I was like, oh, okay, that's fair enough. They get their platform up there. But what he is doing is keeping any names of the accused in there, because I thought, oh, this guy's doing a good thing. But then I saw he was keeping the accuser anonymous and the accused was straight up. And this was a lot of the time on the back. He was... and this was on the basis of word. Again, no evidence. Doing this on the basis of word. Last time I looked, he'd done about 13 different stories. Not all of them had names in. And again, support those. I do support those victims, but I don't support the names being said if there isn't evidence. So obviously people were a bit like, a lot of people are just like, yeah, you're doing a great thing, which they're probably just looking at the first part of it, like he's sharing stories to help people who aren't comfortable with coming out, keeping them anonymous, because that part is probably a good thing. So people were having a problem with him naming the accused without evidence. So he said, if you DM me asking to take a story down, I won't. That's literally the entire point of what I'm trying to do, to give them a voice. Sorry if you don't like it. They probably didn't like what you did to them, so maybe make better choices. Again, making complete assumptions about them. See, I'm not part of that, but I would still argue that he should take them down if they contain names. So then the story came out last night with evidence of a girl who'd shared her story, who'd been found out of lying. It had proof, and somebody shared this proof on Twitter, and he replied this to it. I'm just glad that the objectivity is out there for almost every story, so that ones like this can be verified as false. It honestly just means we need to listen to all sides, but not make assumptions, and determine who is most in the right based on the evidence at the end. Now, this is exactly the opposite of what he did, and it's the opposite of what he is still doing now. So I actually replied to that. So you'll still be posting stories naming one party and keeping the other confidential. Didn't reply. I don't get it. Like I start to think now that it's more about getting engagements on Twitch more than anything else. Like, I genuinely believe that. I don't see why you would say that and completely contradict what you're doing on your own timeline. So there's a really popular streamer called Summit1G, and he's put innocent until proven guilty. unless it's the internet where we do things backwards, which I think is a good point. He should be innocent until proven guilty. And that, again, that does not mean we don't believe the victims. And then somebody's replied, I've wondered for a long time how much you care about others, especially marginalized people. I guess now I know you support systems that keep people from feeling safe. Disappointing to say the least. How do you get that from that? I don't understand how you get to that. How do you get to that conclusion from what he says? It's just all kinds of assumptions, and also saying that he doesn't care about marginalized people. So if she's been wondering about how he cares about others, including marginalized people, if she wonders, that means she doesn't know. But she's been wondering why. Is it because he's not been saying stuff? Because let's face it, who knows what to say under a lot of the circumstances. This guy replying here would actually reply to one of the first story that I was talking about, saying that locker room talk, and talking about how locker room talk was terrible, and how a lot of men were talking about women in locker rooms and congratulating each other on harassing them and that sort of thing. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I was like, this isn't everybody, and it's certainly not most people. I think we can safely say that. But he's put on the Summit 1G post, he's put, considering your lack of comment about anything happening in the last few weeks, I'm completely unsurprised. This is your take. There you go. There's your answer. We found it. Why we found the previous answer's train of thought. Apparently now saying nothing is as bad. I wholeheartedly do not agree with that, because especially when you have a big platform like Summit 1G, it is totally unfair to say to assume that it's just easy to use that platform to do the right thing. God, this reply, wow, bro, go back to posting your rapist apologist video 10 times a day. What? So after reading all these messages, my take on it is, I think there are people trying to look good, trying to get likes, trying to get retweets, acting like they're trying to be positive and help, and they're doing exactly the opposite by accusing people of either doing things wrong, accusing them of the opposite of what they're actually standing for. Like I've been accused of being a sympathist for rapists. It's absolutely not where I stand, and would never ever stand. My take and my advice is that we help victims first and foremost. We have to believe victims, and we should believe victims, but that doesn't automatically say we can go and accuse the other person, call them out, ruin them socially. We can't do that. As much as we trust the person who is calling out, we can't do that unless we have the proof. Once we have the proof, absolutely, let's go for it. Let's call them out. If you see somebody doing it with your own eyes, and it happens in front of you, face to face, call it out. Absolutely. If you see it in a chat, call it out. Absolutely. By no means am I saying we shouldn't be calling people out when they've done something wrong. We absolutely should, but we need proof. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree with a lot of these tweets? Because this is something I've tried to get the general gist of. There are a lot of tweets like this, and it seems to be quite a trend to have this position. So I just wondered what the argument would be for when there's no proof, not going around accusing people. I've been Joe. Thanks a lot for watching.